Good morning. What's happening? So, as you probably noticed, there's some bags behind me. I'm going to just drop the camera a little bit so you might be able to get some perspective as to what my grocery run looked like this morning. Yeah, all that. Because earlier, I got a phone call that my daughters were going to drive up to see me, which I couldn't have been more fucking thrilled about. First thing I thought of was what I'm going to cook for them. Now, some of you may know that in an iteration of this life, a version of me, I spent 30 years as an executive chef and cooked just about all over the world. And there probably, isn't anybody that I haven't cooked for. Trouble being is that food was a way of life for me. And I derived happiness or sadness depending on how I was showing up in the world as a chef. So, because it's a job, you do the best you can and you don't really give much thought of that. It's how can I do the best today? The thing that I didn't understand is just how much I was emotionally attached to not only myself being a chef, and what that means about me, as if being a chef makes me any better or worse than anybody else, but also this other aspect of, being connected to the food. I remember my dad would often cook a meal for us, and that was very often one of the only ways in which I really got a lot of love from my dad, because he would take a lot of time and take a great deal of pride in what he cooked. And so when I first became a chef, it was really important for him to come out and check out the restaurant I was running, because I wanted him to be proud of me, and he never did make that trip, but regardless. So last year I was about 270 pounds on this frame. My dad, just so you understand, was about 350 pounds on his frame. So I'm 270, I'm pretty sick, I'm pretty bloated, so I decided that I'm gonna go on keto as a way of kind of entering into a different relationship in my body. And what I realized was that I had to be very mechanical, very thoughtful, very precise about the food that I took in. And I wasn't prepared for how emotionally attached I was to the food that I was putting in my mouth. How if I wanted a little pep, I would eat a piece of bacon with some salt on it, or a French fry for a simple carb to get me going. And how often, especially being in the kitchen, food's just a hand away, and you just grab that, pull it, and there you go, on your way. So it was breaking a lot of habits. And I got to think about food simply in macronutrients that my body required, and how I might be able to manipulate that in order to get the right ratios as far as keto concerned. I lost about 35 pounds. I came off it and, probably gained about another 5 or 6 back, but that's not the point. So this morning when I found out the girls were coming up, I started getting really charged up about thinking about cooking for them. So as I was going around the grocery store, I was like looking through all the stuff and grabbing stuff off the shelf. And of course, I got some fruit, which is always really great. But then I also, got stuff like chips, because one of their favorite things is this crazy dish that I make, which is basically queso with sausage and beans, and the girls call it ketchup dip, but they fucking love it. And I started to cry thinking about the fact that I get to make this for them, and how in a really weird way I was still emotionally attached to how my food might affect somebody else. That when the girls come up here, I might have an opportunity to cook for them, make them smile, as if that would make up for any of the times that I wasn't present, or the times when I was a shitty dad, or somehow make up for the fact that maybe they didn't feel like I loved them. And so it kind of stopped me in my tracks. It doesn't mean I'm not going to fucking cook ketchup dip, but maybe it's time for me to shift the reason why. Because literally, I am not emotionally attached to, Italian sausage or pretzel chips or any of this shit. I could give a fucking rat's ass about, Velveeta jalapeno. Not emotionally attached to this, but what I am emotionally attached to is how it makes my daughters feel. And maybe I'm fucking them up the same way that my dad fucked me up. That, eating a meal that was prepared by my dad or eating a meal that was prepared by me is somehow supposed to make up for all the times that I wasn't there and wasn't present. So instead of maybe going overboard with cooking this trip around, maybe I'm just going to push everything outside and make this time as sacred as I can be with them. Because when I realized that I was cooking in order to try to emotionally manipulate them to love me or love me more or forgive me, really made me feel like shit. So here's to cooking, and here's to being in service to one another. Thanks for shining the light wherever you're at. Peace.